So Everyday Astronaut did the math on Starship versus Saturn V, and the numbers are kind of brutal if you're betting on Starship as a SpaceX valuation lever. Here's the thing nobody wants to hear. Saturn V got to the moon in one launch. Starship needs at least 12. And it's not because Saturn V was magic. It's because of the way SpaceX is architecting the whole system and what that actually costs when you work backwards from first principles. The narrative is simple. Starship is reusable. Saturn V wasn't. Therefore, Starship is more efficient. Done. Except the math doesn't work that way, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Saturn V was a single-stage beast. Flew once, got you to the moon and back. The entire trip was one vehicle, one launch. Done. Full cost per mission, and this is the number people cite, roughly $280 million adjusted for inflation. So $2.2 billion in today's money. But here's the part everyone glosses over. That was the full program cost amortized across launches. The actual per-flight cost was lower because you're spreading development across all the flights. Now Starship is reusable in theory, but reusability creates a problem nobody talks about. You can't carry as much fuel because you have to leave enough to land and return. So what SpaceX is doing is launching a tanker Starship. That tanker goes up, fills up another Starship in orbit, lands and returns. Then that second Starship goes to the moon. So you're already at 2 launches, but you're also running out of fuel in the tanker, so you need a third, maybe fourth. Each one of those launches is a full mission cost. You're launching all that hardware just to move fuel. The math gets worse. Each Starship launch costs roughly $15 to $20 million in marginal costs if you assume full reusability. But we're not at full reusability yet. We're still recovering and refurbishing. So realistically, you're looking at 50 to 100 million per flight for the next few years. Times 12 launches. That's $600 million to $1.2 billion just to move one payload to the moon using a system that was supposed to be cheaper. And that's before you factor in the infrastructure you have to build. You need launch facilities. You need landing facilities. You need refueling infrastructure in space. Those aren't free. NASA has been saying that Starship lunar logistics will cost more, not less, than traditional systems because of the complexity multiplier of doing 12 coordinated launches. Here's where it gets interesting for investors. This doesn't make Starship a bad bet. It makes it a different bet. You're not buying Starship for moon missions. You're not buying it for cost efficiency on point A to point B space travel. You're buying it for 2 things, scale and optionality. Scale, because SpaceX can eventually run multiple launches per day from multiple sites. That volume changes the math. The marginal cost of the 100th launch is nothing. So the long-term play isn't about individual missions being cheaper. It's about the total addressable market expanding because launch is cheaper at scale. You're opening up markets that didn't exist when launch cost $2 billion a pop. Optionality, because Starship is a proving ground for rapid reuse and in-space refueling. Those technologies work in orbit. That's genuinely hard. Once that works, you can use it for anything. Lunar, Mars, space stations, point-to-point Earth transport. The moon is just the first application. But here's the problem retail investors aren't pricing in. The path from here to there is capital intensive, like billions of dollars of capital. SpaceX is burning cash on this. Profitability is years out. And if you're valuing SpaceX on near-term revenue, Starship is expensive insurance, not a driver. The bears and Everyday Astronaut is being pretty objective here, not bearish, just technical. The bears are saying, if you need 12 launches to do one moon mission, and each launch is $100 million in full cost economics, then Starship lunar transport is priced at $1.2 billion per trip. That's not cheaper than anything we're currently doing. That's more expensive. So what are we actually building this for? And the answer is you're building it for a future where those 12 launches cost $50 million each, not $100 million, where refueling is routine, where launch is so cheap that the economics of doing it 12 times is still better than the economics of doing it once with a non-reusable system. That future is real, but it's 5 to 10 years out, and SpaceX has to get there on its own dime, or on government contracts that don't fully fund the development. So if you're holding SpaceX equity, you need to be clear on what you're betting on. You're not betting on near-term profitability from Starship. You're betting that SpaceX nails the reusability curve fast enough that the long-term economics work out, and that the market for frequent launch is big enough to make it worth it. That's a real thesis. Plenty of smart money is making it. But it's not the same bet as Starship is cheaper because it's reusable. That's just not true yet. It will be true, but not yet. Drop a comment if you've got a position on this. Are you betting on the near-term efficiency narrative or the long-term technology play? And if you want the full picture on how Elon's betting the company on these moonshot economics, I went deep on that in the Starship valuation breakdown. Link in the description. And speaking of people broadcasting their assets on the internet, an influencer just got burglarized after spending months showing off their expensive stuff on social media. Like, literally filmed themselves with the items, tagged the location, and then acted shocked when people knew exactly what to steal and where to find it. It's a pretty clean example of what happens when you optimize for engagement without thinking about operational security. The thieves even called it easy. Just brilliant stuff. Okay, I'm out. Drop a comment if you want me to dig into any of this further. Take care.